What's going on, guys? CG Matt back. For the title of the video today, I'm here to try to predict the end of season NBA standings. If you see me looking down, it's because that's where I have my predictions. If you see me looking left, that's where I have strength of schedule and remaining schedule left for all the teams we're going to talk about today. Let's go. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We're starting off in the Western Conference. Sticking at my 1 seed, I still have the Oklahoma City Thunder. I know that's not the fun pick, but their strength of schedule, it has some winnable games. They have a game versus the Pistons to start, then the Lakers at home, then the Utah Jazz at home. So that's 3 straight games. I think 2 of those are winnable against the Pistons and Utah. Then they get at Lakers, at Clippers, at Nuggets, and then home versus the Suns. I think the Clippers are very winnable, and I think the Suns are very winnable as well. That is 4 games that I think are very winnable for a team like the Thunder, who albeit could also beat the brakes off the Lakers if it really came down to it as well. They could probably also beat Denver. There's a chance that they end up perfect to end their season, especially because Detroit is the first game on the schedule. They don't have Cade Cunningham. That should be a game that they win. 2 games against the Lakers and then 1 against the Nuggets. That's their hardest schedule. Pistons I'm not counting because, like I said, their leader's not out there, and the Thunder would probably do a better job at guarding a Jalen Duren than some other teams. That's who the Pistons have been relying on, is Jalen Duren. So I think that there's only really like 2 to 3 hard games for the Thunder down the stretch here, and they already have a 2-game cushion on the San Antonio Spurs, so I think they're going to stick there. That's a pretty easy one. Also, another chip shot, give me my 2 seed is the Spurs. They're currently 8 games up on the Lakers for the 3 seed, so they're definitely not relinquishing that anytime soon. The remaining schedule for the Spurs, though, we'll still go over it. They have the Bulls, then at Warriors, at Clippers, at Nuggets. That's a little bit tough for a 3-game road trip, but the Warriors and the Clippers are very winnable in that as well. And then home versus the Sixers, Blazers, Mavericks, and Nuggets to end the season. That's another one where they could walk out of there 4-0 if they beat Denver. Really, the hardest game they have down the stretch of this season is probably at Nuggets, and they can do that. They can win that game. With the 8-game lead and only really 2 challenging games left, it depends on what version of the 76ers you get, but with only like 2 to maybe 3 games against really, really competitive teams at the end, I don't see anything bad really happening. They could jump the Thunder, but I think the Thunder also have a pretty simple road ahead down the stretch of the season, so I think the 1 and 2 in the West will stay the exact same. Up in my 3 spot, I still have the Lakers. The Lakers do have 2 games against the Thunder, which is very tough, but the other games around the 2 games against the Thunder I think are very winnable. The Wizards, winnable. The Cavs are a very tough team that have the ability to beat the Lakers because they have size, which is something the Lakers have kind of struggled with at times. And then at Thunder, and they have a home game against the Thunder. But total the amount of winnable games that they have, games that I'd like to call gimme or chip shots. Wizards, Mavericks, Warriors, Suns, and Jazz. That's 5 games against teams that I think they should beat. And then, like I said, in between you have the Cavs and Thunder twice. Those are 3 tough games, don't get me wrong. But when you surround it with teams that you could probably beat, you probably should beat, you know, it paves the way a little bit. I'm not fun at all. I'm taking the top 3 seeds to say the top 3 seeds. They currently have a 1-game cushion over Denver, I believe. Realistically, 3 through like 6, maybe even 7 in the West are very clustered right now. But I think the Lakers are still going to stick at that 3 seed simply because the strength of schedule down the stretch for them really isn't the most challenging thing ever. 2 games against the Thunder definitely don't help. That's really, really tough. But you still have winnable games, like I said. Wizards, Mavericks, Warriors, Suns, and Jazz are all games that a team like the Lakers, if they have championship aspirations at least, should win. I'm still not fun. At the 4 seed, I have the Nuggets still. The Nuggets' strength of schedule to end this season still has at Jazz, which is winnable, even though they looked pretty bad against the Jazz a few nights ago. But that's a different story all around. The Jazz literally lost that game intentionally. They benched everyone possible in the 4th quarter. You know what? I won't go into tanking talk. At Jazz, then home versus the Spurs, Blazers, Grizzlies, Thunder, and then at Spurs to end their season. So they have 2 games versus the Spurs, 1 game versus the Thunder, but then 3 games that I believe are all winnable games at Jazz, and then home versus the Blazers and Grizzlies. Those should be 2 wins. Spurs, Thunder, at Spurs. 3 tough games. And then their season ending with Thunder Spurs could get really violent if it's within a game, because those are games that they'd really, really need. If the Wolves or the Rockets really get on their ass, you're talking about 2 games at the end of the season with the Thunder and the Spurs. But what I will say is that at Spurs for their last game, you don't know what's going to happen that game, right? For instance, Wemby could sit. If the Spurs have clinched the 2 seed and there's no way they could get to the 1 and they only have 1 game remaining on the season, they probably aren't going to send Wemby out there a ton, you know? So I think that the Nuggets still will stick at that 4 seed. I know I'm no fun. I'm not predicting any upsets. I debated putting the Nuggets over the Lakers, but the Lakers just have more games that I think are against very easily beatable opponents, and the Lakers have done a good job at putting away teams recently, and the Nuggets have struggled with that. If you watched the Nuggets game yesterday on Sunday Night Basketball against the Warriors, you would know that the final score shows a different story than if you actually watched the game. Coming at a halftime, the Nuggets kind of started to take reins of the game a little bit, but before halftime, it was a very competitive, close game, and the Warriors actually led for a good little bit of it. So the Nuggets are a scary team for me. I think they'll still stick at 4, though. They have enough winnable games, and the teams behind them aren't really putting their best foot forward going into the playoffs, as we're going to go into the 5 seed now. My 5 seed, I have the Houston Rockets. The Houston Rockets down the stretch have not played their best basketball recently, but down the stretch, the Rockets have home games versus the Knicks, Bucks, and Jazz to start. The Bucks and Jazz should be 2 wins. Easy, please. Home versus the Knicks is a tough one, but I think they can pull that one out too. They have the size. Then you have at Warriors, at Suns, and then home versus the 76ers, Timberwolves, and Grizzlies to end the season. This Rockets team, I could put them up higher because their strength of schedule, they have a bunch of games that I think should be wins for a team of their caliber. Home versus the Bucks and Jazz should be 2 wins. At Warriors should be a win. At Suns should be a win. We don't know. The Suns play tough sometimes, so I'm not going to discount them. Home versus Philly really depends on what version you get. Home versus Timberwolves is tough because the Timberwolves will be healthy by then and still be looking at playoff seeding, so it'll be competitive. And then home versus the Grizzlies to end the year is very winnable. In all reality, I think they have 5 games that they should win on this schedule down the stretch of this season, which is why I have them over a team like Minnesota. But I think their last matchup of the season, Rockets versus T-Wolves, it's the second last game of the year of the regular season. That will be a very pivotal matchup. And the Grizzlies game at the end, man, like that should just about cinch it up. What I'm thinking here really is that they get a little bit of distance from a team like the Wolves because with the Bucks and Jazz and the Warriors and the Suns, they could rattle off 4 straight wins. But here's the thing about the Rockets. They are a weird team, man. They just won't show up some nights. They had a very big blowout win yesterday. Congratulations to them. Moving forward, though, you need to see that same effort consistently, and they just have not given that recently. They've been a really hard team to watch down the stretch. The vibes are just off. Nobody's cheering for each other on the benches. They need to be more together. There's not a lot of camaraderie right now. And the Rockets, this could be a team where, like I said, I have them penciled in at the 5 spot. At the 5 spot, I have them there because I think that they have winnable games left. This is a team that down the stretch really needs to build momentum going into the playoffs if they want to have a chance and not just be a first round out. You know how you can get some real momentum going? Beat the shit out of some cupcake teams that aren't on your level. Next, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Timberwolves' strength of schedule is just a lot of away games. 2 road trips. They have at Mavericks, at Pistons, at Hornets. That's a 3-game road stretch right there, which is a really weird 3-game road trip. At Dallas, and then you go all the way up to Detroit, and then you go to Philly right after. I know there's days off in between, but going from Dallas to Detroit is kind of crazy. So they start off with that 3-game set. Then they go home against the Hornets, which are a very tough team. At Pacers, at Magic, at Rockets, and then home versus the Pelicans. They have what I will call 2-3 winnable games, maybe. I would say the Mavericks are very winnable. I would say the Pacers are very winnable. And then the Pelicans. 3 guaranteed wins. The rest of them, though, Pistons are tough. I think that the Wolves are a good team, but it really depends on Anthony Edwards' health. He will be back tonight, I believe, Monday at the time of recording. I believe they said he'll be back. But beyond that, it's like 76ers. If they have Embiid, that's a very tough team to beat. And then the Hornets are just really tough. The Magic are a tough team, although they've slid. Rockets will be a huge game to really kind of cinch the Western Conference standings. And then the Pelicans to end the year is a gimme. I just think the Rockets have more gimmies and road trips. Road trips are tough. Road trips are where trap games get you. You know, a team like the Pacers shows up in Minnesota, they're probably getting the shit beat out of them for 48 minutes at this point, right? The thing is, you go on a 3-game road trip and you catch the Magic in between. The Magic are a physical defensive team, or even the Rockets, another physical defensive team that are just going to wear and tear on you. I like this Timberwolves team, and I think that they still have a high ceiling for the playoffs, but they have kind of slowed up a little bit down the stretch. And I get it, it's because Anthony Edwards is out, but man, have they been a brutal watch at some points. Up next in the 7 seed, I have the Clippers over the Suns, and some Suns fans might not like that. Currently, the Clippers are only 2.5 back of the Phoenix Suns, and the Clippers' strength of schedule to end here is not hard. The Clippers' strength of schedule to end the season is the Blazers, the Spurs, that's a losing game probably, at Kings, Mavericks, Thunder, at Trailblazers, and then Warriors. Over that stretch, they have the Blazers, winnable game, Kings, winnable game, Mavericks, winnable game, Trailblazers, winnable game, and the Warriors, winnable game. That's five games that are very winnable for a team like the Clippers, especially because they've been playing better recently. But this is a team that really has high highs and low lows, which would mean that I am pushing the Phoenix Suns down into the 8 seed spot. The Suns' strength of schedule to end is at Grizzlies, at Magic, at Hornets, at Bulls. That's a 4-game road trip. That's where you get trapped. That's where you can end up losing to a Chicago Bulls team that's playing for nothing and that plays frenetic with a shit ton of pace. You know, they might lose that game just because they're tired. They've been on a long road trip. Then they come home to face the Rockets and the Mavericks. And then to end their season, they get at Lakers, at Thunder. That's bullying. All these teams I've been counting up winnable games. The Suns' winnable games down the stretch. At Grizzlies, that should be winnable. At Bulls should be winnable. And then home versus the Mavericks should be winnable. That's 3 winnable games. The rest of them, they could all lose. They could lose to the Magic. They could lose to the Hornets. They could lose to the Rockets. They could lose to the Lakers. And they'll probably end up losing to the Thunder. That's like 5 games where I could see them losing in all reality. Not saying they're going to lose, but I could see them losing it, which is why I'm a little bit more timid or shy picking the Suns to be at the 7 seed. Much credit to the Suns, man. They've had a hell of a fun season, but again, I just see their strength of schedule at the end and I go, that's bullying. That's scheduled bullying right there. A 2-game road trip to end in the Lakers and the Thunder, who are playing some of their best basketball right now, both teams. That's not fun. That's not fun, and I don't like it. And then at the bottom of the play-in, I still have the Blazers and the Warriors last. The Blazers have at Clippers, and then the Pelicans, at Nuggets, at Spurs, and then Clippers and Kings to end their season. That's not bad. And then the Warriors to end have the Spurs, the Cavs, the Rockets, the Kings, the Lakers, at Kings, and at Clippers to end their season. I don't know when Steph Curry is going to be back. And if they gave me a return date, if they said Steph Curry will be back Tuesday, I'd be like, oh, maybe they can make a little push here. But the fact that I don't even know when Steph's coming back, that makes it kind of not easy to predict, and it definitely makes it not like I want to predict them. I don't want to predict them if Steph Curry doesn't have a timetable yet. And then for the Trailblazers, they've played relatively well recently. Like they're above 500 team over the last 10, I like to believe. I can check that. They're 7-3 over the last 10, so they've been playing competitive enough basketball. I think the Blazers have a better chance of making the play-in than the Warriors, or making the playoffs than the Warriors do, but I guess we'll see come play-in time. None of this matters, though. We're going to bounce over to the Eastern Conference. To start the Eastern Conference, I still have the Detroit Pistons. And again, I know I'm not the fun guy here picking the upsets and being wild. The Pistons, to end their season, though, their schedule can get a little bit dicey here and there. They have at Thunder, which is very losable. Then they have Raptors, Timberwolves. Those are 2 very tough teams, and especially without Cade Cunningham there, again, very tough. At 76ers, who are getting healthy at the right time. At Magic, who albeit have not been playing well. Let's say they win that game. And then home versus the Bucks. At Hornets, at Pacers. So at Hornets, at Pacers, they should win the Pacers game. The rest of their schedule, though, not a lot of givens. Not a lot of givens for a team like Detroit. Like I said, the only teams I'd consider like that should be winnable are the Bucks and the Pacers. The rest of them are really tough. Thunder, Raptors, Wolves, 76ers, Magic, Hornets. That's tough. That's a tough 6 games. Probably thinking that's a tough 6 games and you still have them at the 1 seed. Yeah, they have a 4-game advantage on the Celtics. So unless they really, really collapse, they would have to lose to the Thunder, the Raptors, the Wolves. They would have to lose a lot of those 50-50 games. And even with Cade Cunningham not healthy, they could beat Toronto. With Cade Cunningham not healthy, they'll probably end up beating a team like the Magic, the Bucks, and then probably the Pacers too. So I don't know. The Pistons have been a really competent team without Cade Cunningham. I don't think they'll fumble a 4-game lead, even though, like I said, they played good ball recently without him. I don't think they're going to fumble his 4-game lead without Cade. 2 seed is still my Boston Celtics. The Celtics down the stretch, it's a little bit of a weird schedule. It's very East heavy. Actually, every team they face is in the Eastern Conference except the Pelicans, which, you know, if that's going to be the one Western Conference team you face, hey, I'll take it. Their remaining schedule is at Hawks, at Heat, at Bucks. They could walk out 3-0. They beat the Hawks a few days ago. They faced them tonight on Monday, I know that. And Lord knows if Jaylen Brown will be back. But if Jason Tatum's playing the way he was like he was yesterday, by God, it'll be tough for them. But at Hawks, at Heat, at Bucks, they could walk out 3-0 right there. Then they have Raptors, Hornets, at Knicks, Pelicans, Magic to end their season. The Celtics currently have 2.5 games on the New York Knicks right now, and they have, if I were to count on my hands, 1, 2, 3 winnable games, 4 winnable games, depending on how you view the Miami Heat. The most challenging game on their schedule to end the season is probably at Knicks or home versus the Hornets, because the Hornets did punk the Celtics in Boston earlier this year. But their remaining strength of schedule is mostly just the 5 to 10 seeds in the East, which isn't that bad, all things considered, when a lot of teams' strength of schedule is like, here's 3 games versus the Thunder, 1 versus the Nuggets, and 1 versus the Spurs. You know, I'd rather have the Heat and the Raptors than any version of a Western Conference team. Not any version, obviously. I'd rather have Utah than all of them. But yeah, the Celtics, I think, are still going to camp out in that 2 seed. Like I said, 2.5 game difference. Jason Tatum is actually out Monday for injury management. Hopefully, Jaylen Brown is back and healthy. He can help try and carry them over this tough Atlanta Hawks team. Jaylen Brown is back. Within 30 seconds, it said Jaylen Brown is back. He's playing tonight. So, yeah, I think the Celtics are going to stick at the 2 seed. I really think they're going to stick at the 2. At the 3 seed, this might shock you. I have the Cleveland Cavaliers. Why? They're 1.5 games back of the New York Knicks, and the Cavs' remaining schedule, listen to this one, at Jazz, easy. At Lakers, that's tough. At Warriors, should be a win. Home versus the Pacers should be a win. At Grizzlies should be a win. Hawks, at Hawks, Washington. So down the stretch of their season, their toughest opponent is on the road against the Lakers, probably. Their easiest opponent is really a tie, whether between the Jazz, the Pacers, the Grizzlies, and the Wizards. That's not, and the Warriors are also in there. Those are like 5 games that they should win. This isn't me indicting the Knicks and saying the Knicks are frauds. No. Don't think that if you're a Knicks fan. I'm saying the Cavs have a fucking cakewalk to end their season. Are you shitting me? Of their last 8 games, 5 of them should be winnable. And then the back-to-back against the Hawks, let's say they split 1. They're probably not going to go 0 for 2 there. So they should have at least 6 winnable games down the stretch of their last 8 games. You know, the Lakers are the toughest challenge, and then probably at Hawks will be tough. The rest of the way, though, is pretty much paved for the Cavs to win out. They could win out, really. If they beat the Lakers, they could win out, and that would push the Knicks down because the Knicks' strength of schedule is, obviously I have them at the 4 seed, the Knicks' strength of schedule is at Rockets, at Grizzlies, home versus the Bulls, at Hawks, home versus the Celtics, the Raptors, and the Hornets to end the season. The winnable games for the Knicks, I believe they have 2 to 3. The Grizzlies, the Bulls, and I'll throw the Hawks in there. I have no idea. These East playing teams are so weird. I'm not sure if the Hawks are a winnable game for the Knicks or if the Hawks beat them earlier this year in MSG, I'm pretty sure. So I don't know. The Knicks' toughest opponent down the stretch is either the Celtics or the Rockets, depending on how you feel about that. But they also have a ton of games, like I said, against the East playing teams. The Hawks, they have the Raptors and the Hornets all in there. Those are 3 teams that are kind of on their ass. They have a bunch of games that they could lose and not a bunch that I'd guarantee a win for. You're only up 1.5 games against a team like the Cavs, who are a very talented team going against some very easy teams. You know what I mean? That kind of paints the picture. If you're questioning why I have the Cavs over the Knicks, that should paint the picture for you. The Cavs just have an easy schedule. They could really win out. Up after the Knicks, I have the Philadelphia 76ers, which is weird. They've been such a weird team all year, but I have the 76ers up next. The 76ers remaining schedule, they're getting healthy at the right time. They have Maxey and Embiid back and Paul George back. They're getting healthy at the right time. To end their season, they get at Miami, at Wizards, then home versus the Timberwolves, Pistons, at Spurs, at Rockets, at Pacers, and then home versus the Bucks. Winnable games for the 76ers in there includes at Wizards, at Pacers, and then home versus the Bucks, and then they could beat the Heat potentially as well. They're getting healthy at the right time. They've looked like a very competitive team when they have their guys in the lineup. Guys like Maxey, Embiid, Paul George are all back, and that really helps me kind of have confidence in this team down the stretch. And again, it really depends on what version of the team you're getting. Without Joel Embiid, I don't know how much confidence I have, but if JoJo's back and they got that big 3, whatever you want to call it, big 3 rolling, they could really make some moves, and that's why I have them jumping up in the standings. Up next at the 6th seed, I have the Toronto Raptors. For the Raptors, they have at Pistons, and then Kings, at Grizzlies, at Celtics, Heat, at Knicks, and Nets. Yeah, they play back-to-back against the Heat, both at home. They have 3 games I'll call winnable. You could even justify saying 5 if you say the Heat back-to-back, so 4 if they split it, let's say. But Raptors are starting to maybe play better. I mean, if you watch that game against Orlando, that is the largest run in NBA history, I believe, 32-0 or whatever. It was a long run. I think they said it was the longest run in NBA history, where the other team scored nothing. Do you wonder why the Orlando Magic are so low? Anyways, with Toronto, I think that they have a bunch of winnable games in there, and I think they're a competitive team. I think they could stick at the 6th seed, and the 7th seed would be the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks down the stretch of their season have the Celtics, which they could lose, at Magic, at Nets, Knicks, at Cavs, home versus the Cavs, and then at Heat. A bunch of competitive teams late for the Atlanta Hawks, which is why I have them kind of falling a little bit. Those competitive teams really can screw them over because, like, if you look at their schedule over their last, 20 games or so, it hasn't been cakewalk. There's been some challenges in there, don't get me wrong, but it hasn't been a real flex of muscles. You know what I mean? And they had their chance to do that against the Celtics. They didn't do it the other night. They could do it tonight, potentially. But there's not many winnable games in there. At Nets is winnable, and that's the only one I'd guarantee for a team like the Hawks that's either really good or really bad with the way that they played this season. The Magic, let's say that's winnable because the Magic looked like shit yesterday. But the Knicks, the Celtics, the Cavs twice, and the Heat are all games that they could drop. I know I don't think the Heat are as good as them, but they're close. They're close in talent level, so it's droppable. That's why I have them falling a little bit, but don't worry, they're still above the Charlotte Hornets, who are up next. The Hornets' strength of schedule remaining is at Nets, and then home versus the Suns, Pacers, at Timberwolves, at Celtics, home versus the Pistons, and at Knicks. I have the Hornets coming up a little bit. They've been playing really good basketball, and then they have some easy ones to straighten them out a little bit when they've lost to the Celtics the other night, so they need a little bit of straightening. They've lost back-to-back, I believe, for the first time in a while, it feels like. But the Nets, the Suns, and the Pacers could all be 3 wins. Timberwolves, Celtics, Pistons, Knicks to end the season could really fuck them over. It really could. But with margin, I think there's margin of error because the 2 teams below them have played horrible to continue their season. So that's why I have the Hornets moving up a little bit. Even though there are competitive games in there, they could steal that game versus the Knicks. They could steal that game versus the Pistons. They're a tough team that can really beat. They could beat the Celtics. They're a tough team that could beat anyone. Truthfully, I don't even want this to be the standings. I don't want to see the Hornets first round if I'm Boston or Detroit. I don't. Why would I want to see the Hornets here? I don't want to see that. This isn't the team that I want to see first round. If my team has championship aspirations and first round we get the Charlotte Hornets, I'm panicking a little bit. I don't like it. And then to close in the East, I have the Orlando Magic and then the Miami Heat. The Magic have played horribly recently, like terrible, and so it gives me no confidence in them. Suns, Hawks, at Mavs, at Pelicans, Pistons, Timberwolves, at Bulls, at Celtics to end the Magic season. For a team like Orlando, who's been super up and super down, they could lose to the Suns, they could lose to the Hawks, they could lose to the Pistons, they could lose to the Timberwolves, they could lose to the Bulls for fuck's sake, and they could probably lose to the Celtics. They can lose to anyone. That's the thing about the Magic is some days with their defense and how tough they are, they could beat anyone. But also on the contrary, their offense is so brutal at times, they might not beat anyone. I wish the best for the Orlando Magic. I love P5, but they've been terrible recently, and it gives me absolutely no confidence that they'll have the ability to turn their season around and march themselves up the standings when they've lost what are they, 2-8 in their last 10, I believe? 3-7 in their last 10. Oh my God, 3-7 in their last 10. Yeah, that's pretty fucking bad, guys. And considering their strength of schedule is the 11th hardest in basketball, I don't like it. And then the Heat to end the season. They have the 76ers, Celtics, and Wizards all at home. And then they go on a 3-game road trip to see the Raptors twice, and then the Wizards, and then the Hawks to end their season. The Heat have also, they're another team. Are they 3-7 in their last 10 as well? Yeah, including a 2-game losing streak. While their schedule does kind of lighten up because you get 2 games against the Wizards, you also still have the 1 versus the Celtics, the 2 versus Toronto, the 1 versus the Hawks and the Sixers that are all losable for them. They have not put their best foot forward, and it doesn't give me a ton of confidence going into the playoffs. Neither the Magic nor the Heat really make me feel confident in them going into playoff time. So that's why they both fell. That is the end of today's video. If you enjoyed, you should like and subscribe. Let me know down below. Comment your full standings prediction. I want 1 through 8, buddy. I'm not asking for you to predict 1 through 4. 1 through 8 down in the comments. That's your homework tonight, big dog. If you liked, like I said, like and subscribe. Thank you all for joining me. It's been fun. I'm going to go catch the game. See you guys in the next one.